Welcome to the Report, where we watch and talk about every episode of the Colbert Report from 2005, 2014. That's a lot of episodes. I'm Nathaniel,
And I'm Alex.
and Colbert's guest today is Ken Burns.
So the big story yesterday is Prince Charles's tour of the U.S., which is the first one he did while married to Camilla Parker.
Interestingly enough, they never actually focus on Charles. It's mostly just about Camilla.
Yeah, and he says someone will care, and indeed it doesn't seem like anybody actually cared.
About the tour.
I said this was an easy episode because there's no substantial news thing for me to research.
Guess it was a slow news day.
Baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he references how to do it will be the formidable opponent thing. Saying, should you give the money to the needy, or do you needy it more yourself? Asked Ken Burns about if we'll give him a free tote bag for the pledge drives, which he does bring back later.
Does PBS still do the tote bags? Do they do the tote bags still?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And they do. And about earlier on, he says that the Civil War was the last good war, but he will attack Ken Burns for the things he said about the Confederacy.
Yeah. Does he mention that he's from Charleston in that bit?
When he interviews Ken Burns, actually.
I think he mentioned... I thought he mentioned that in the intro.
Oh, I guess he talked about Ken Burns during the word. I'm surprised he doesn't usually blend things, but
yeah,
I guess he did. And but it seems like he mostly makes it seem like the Cavill thing is just a distraction from all the things that were in the news, which he lists as Iraq, Karl Rove, Harriet Myers, Tom DeLay, Samuel Alito, Scooter Libby, and Hurricane Katrina.
How many of those things have gotten a word about them? Well, I know Alito has.
Tom DeLay didn't get a word talking about his arrest.
Yeah.
And
there hasn't been one about Katrina yet.
Yeah, Katrina hasn't really gotten talked about that much, even though it was still a big deal. I think Bill Frist was in there too, and I just forgot to write it down for some reason.
Yeah, I think Bill Frist was in there. No word about Bill Frist.
I mean, they did mention him before, which is why I looked up why he was arrested, because they had no idea that... he wasn't arrested. They just thought he might be under investigation for some, stock trading thing he did, but...
Okay.
And Camilla represents Glamour with a U.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says she's so radiant, and then shows a picture of her and says no worries there. And that seems kind of mean.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad picture, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't do her justice.
Yeah.
They do have the Colbert Report. They do try and find the worst photos, right?
Yeah.
There's the famous one, Rick Scott.
Yeah.
That's really bad.
Yeah. And he does make jokes about people's appearance, but I mean, it is honestly kind of... I do wonder if he would do that if he had just started out today, even though they are really funny.
Yeah.
There's one feature coming up for a red-haired Tennessee legislator named Stacey Campfield, calling him the Lost Weasley brother.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Does he look like a Weasley aside from just having red hair?
I think he kind of does.
Oh, okay.
And he says that they're the most popular royals except for Queen Latifah.
Yeah.
They say the new power couple will move over Brangelina.
Mm-hmm.
He also has a whole bit of the boy meets girl, boy meets another girl, and has a secret romance with her for many years. Boy divorces girl dies in tragic accident. Boy marries first girl, or something like that.
Yeah, so one of those.
And then the move over Brangelina. I mean, I guess you can get away from that at the time. Do you remember what the setup was for the $4 coffee thing?
I don't remember. I remember they mentioned it was Starbucks. Yeah, I remember it being expensive.
And they said, and I mean, I do feel like that would probably be cheaper now. So
yeah,
but it seems like in the word in this one there are two jokes where they used a picture in the bullet point, which I don't think they did later, and I don't think it really works. If you want to do a picture, do it to the left,
where by Colbert's head.
Yeah, where pictures usually are. And then he says it's giving him butterflies, monarch butterflies, according to the bullet point.
Yeah, the whole joke is how he starts off not buying the whole Royals thing, then he gets really excited about it by the end.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how these word things work.
Yeah.
And he says that he's King Arthur and Camilla will be his Merlin.
Mm-hmm.
And then he starts reading off all of the royal titles of Prince Charles and says actual title.
Yeah.
And the driver's license is huge. So this reminded me of the thing where the one YouTube sponsor that's actually gotten clowned on so hard they stopped doing it, the established titles thing. And one of their advertised things was that you could put your title on your driver's license. It seems like they'll just let you put any title on your driver's license so long as you claim to have it. in some
What's the established
places.
titles? It just lets you claim titles?
The idea is that it would buy a small plot of land for you in Scotland, and it would make you the lord of that plot of land. But the
Oh,
way they worded their advertisements made it seem like there was some kind of Scottish legal loophole they were using, but it wasn't. Like, just anybody could call themselves the lord.
so
I
it's like,
guess.
why pay them?
I guess. Yeah.
It's probably cheaper just do it yourself.
Yeah.
So I know what's I guess now King Charles like legal name?
I
Charles
mean,
Windsor.
Windsor isn't part of his legal name. His
It's not
legal
part of
name is King Charles III. I'm pretty
King
sure.
Charles III. So he would never have a last name.
I don't think so, unless he left. I mean, if he did, his last name I think would be Mountbatten Windsor, because I mean that's what Prince Harry's kids have gotten because they don't
Okay.
have a royal title.
So is that Mountbatten the same as Lord Mountbatten,
I mean,
last
yeah,
Viceroy of India?
yeah. I mean, Prince Philip's name would have been Mountbatten. So
So Prince Philip was Lord Mountbatten's kid,
no, not his kid. I think they were like
his
cousins or something.
cousins.
Yeah,
So that's how they're related to that.
I think
So
so.
Windsor Mount. Do we know what would say I don't know Louis the XIV's name be if he were
Bourbon,
Louis
probably,
Bourbon?
or
So
Cafe. I mean, I'm not. I think that
yeah,
like their descendants just go by Bourbon or something.
I mean obviously like monarchs don't follow those
Yeah,
conventions, but it's an interesting to consider.
yeah.
I feel
Yeah. And
and
so the next bit is like another sketch. It's emergency evacuation, and you get I'm pretty sure it's the debut of Tad, the building manager, who's played by Paul Dinello, Colbert's old comedy partner from a lot of his shows in the old days.
yep.
Strange with Candy. He does show up occasionally,
So
even though
he's one of the recurring characters.
and like as we saw from those things, it seems like early on they were not confident at all that Colbert could carry the show by himself. So I assume this was
An attempt to see how that would go over.
yeah,
Of course, I think it's interesting because the whole point of the show is that it's all about Colbert.
yeah,
So it's kind of I feel like it runs contrary to principle to have like a co-star or
yeah,
other characters because the joke is it's all about him,
yeah,
really.
yeah. And I assume a building manager would be somebody you would have to deal with in a show like this. So that's probably where they got the idea.
Yeah. Who's the actual building
I have
manager?
no idea,
No
but
idea. Is there records of that or
I mean maybe, but I don't think that. And so phase one
of the escape plan?
is to save Stephen
Who will be escorted to a helicopter?
helicopter, and at the location waiting for him, they have some things, including a 20-year-old Thai masseuse.
Hmm.
And the next part is save Steven's staff, but it's actually save Steven's stuff.
Yep.
So he has the jumbo go bags and the personal go bag that Colbert carried with him on the helicopter.
Yeah.
The multiple Stephen portraits they have to pick up.
Although this, interesting enough, does imply that Colbert lives on set.
Yeah, I guess maybe he does. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if, like,
The character lives there.
maybe. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
the character would probably have like a huge mansion, but
Yeah, but maybe
yeah,
TV is his mansion. Also, one bit I appreciate is when they're packing the jumbo go bags. They have just a bunch of like portraits of
yep, they
Colbert,
do.
and they just
Yeah,
keep packing them in,
yeah.
and it's funny.
And then phase three is actually to save the staff. They have to go down 34 stairs, apparently. And as you can imagine, the studio did not actually have 34 stairs. It only was 3 to 4 stories.
3 or 4 stories, and then of course there's a person in a wheelchair
Yeah.
named Toby.
And, like, they don't know how to evacuate him. There's a couch in the elevator.
Yeah.
But, like, Steven tells him that he can't do anything about it. So,
Nobody left alive.
yeah,
in the
so Paul
building.
snaps his neck.
Tad doesn't Tad.
I mean, Tad is his name in this.
Yeah.
I forgot that.
Yeah, Paul's his real name.
Well, Paul is his real name.
Yeah. So who is Toby? Like the real person?
I don't know. I mean, it might
It's
be
hard
on
to find.
IMDb, but I don't remember. I don't think that the Colbert News Hub talked
Yeah.
about that. But
Well, I was just wondering if the person who played Toby was actually like one of the writers
He might
who
have been.
who's disabled, but
I feel like that joke would be obvious enough it wouldn't have necessarily been needed to be inspired by a real person. But, and
yeah.
phase four, to save the show, they have a coal bunker under the office.
Mm-hmm.
And reminding me of, like, I think on TV tropes I learned about this, maybe Cracked or something, I learned about this one attempt to make a conservative comic in like 2004. It's called Liberality for All. And the premise was that Al Gore was elected, and so we were weak on the terrorists.
Mm.
And so by like 2015 or something, Osama bin Laden is openly walking around as the ambassador to the UN from Afghanistan.
Mm.
And like Hillary Clinton or Chelsea Clinton is president or something.
Yeah.
And also, like, Fox News is illegal because it was bought by George Soros. And they made the Coulter laws, which made like saying like hate speech illegal or something. And so now like all the conservative media pundits have to operate underground because the terrorists keep trying to kill them. And it honestly seems like kind of a tame Orwellian thing. Like they're not openly like hunting them down. Like the terrorists don't even seem to be directly allied with the government. The government is just stupid.
Why would the terrorists hunt pundits?
As I said, it is weird. Like you don't hear about any of the politicians being hunted. I think the only reason why is because the guy wanted to go on their shows, so that, and he thought
Uh-huh.
that that would be a good way to flatter them. I guess like there's Sean Hannity and G. Gordon Liddy, which
Did it work?
I think he did, but I don't think the comic was popular at all. Like it didn't even make it to the end of like the I think 8 issues it was supposed to have.
Yeah, well, it sounds crazy. So that's when you think of Cold Bunker? Because
Yeah, because they were they had like they were like broadcasting their show like in secret or something.
yeah. Was the comic made after the episode or
I
before?
think it might have been. I think it was before. I don't. I
Yeah.
really.
Uh,
And so, like, the thing is, like, I guess the idea was that the segment was supposed to have been filmed on Saturday, and now that it's Tuesday, Tad is still in the bunker,
yep.
and he asks if he's going to be paid, and he says, "Well, if there's a real emergency, you wouldn't get paid."
Yeah. Colbert gets him with that a couple of
Yeah,
times.
and I like that instead of having talking about his family, he just says he has pets.
Yeah.
Then he says he's going to cut off the power. Then he get him in memoriam Toby. And then one thing I do kind of wonder if this breaks the rules is that I remember Alison Silverman has said multiple times that she wanted to make sure that Colbert was portrayed as stupid and not evil.
He seems evil in this.
Yeah, but I mean he does also seem very stupid. So
Yeah. Stupid and evil.
yeah, it's kind of
Maybe they clear that up later on
yeah,
the line.
it's okay. So now we have the interview with Ken Burns. He says he'll teach him to report on things that actually happened.
He tells Ken Burns to report on things that actually happened.
Yeah, unlike jazz and baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so he starts off with a question about why isn't anyone doing a documentary about this show? And he says it would maybe take him like 10 years for people to know about its impact.
Yeah, Ken Burns mentions he likes to have a gap between
Yeah.
when he
And then
does
he
stuff.
says, you let other people do the work and sweep up their facts. So, I mean, that's kind of how his.
I mean, Ken Burns says, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
documentarians do. He
Yeah.
doesn't actually fight the notion, which is, I think, good,
Yeah.
probably.
But then he asks about the Iraq War, and then he says it'd be like 50 years. And the Vietnam documentary came out in 2017, which I mean was a little bit more than 50 years after the start. But I mean, I guess maybe he was kind of holding to that for when he would do Vietnam. But
Yeah. So is Ken Burns, like, trying to document, has he done World War II?
I think he might have, but I'm not sure if he's done a huge one.
Is he still, like, a respected documentarian?
I mean, I feel like it's honestly kind of, but yeah, it seems like he hasn't like dipped his toes into anything weird enough to lose like respect. So yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that people still like Ken
So,
Burns.
so what has he done, like, what are the big things he's done since the episode aired?
I mean, he did Vietnam. He did one on the national parks. He did one on the Roosevelts.
Okay. So he's still doing stuff. He hasn't,
Yeah,
like, lost
I don't
popularity.
think so. Yeah, I mean, I doubt. I'm not. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I feel like this. I don't think anything was as popular as the Civil War, but
Yeah. Is he still under the employ of PBS?
I'm not sure if he's a permanent employee. But I mean, I think PBS has still aired every one of the
Ken Burns.
things he's made.
Okay.
And then he says, like, for the Iraq War documentary, who will read Dick Cheney's letters?
Cool. Yeah.
But then, like, they said that he's disappointed that he feels like there might be less letters because those would like evaporate more quickly.
The emails and
Yeah,
such.
which I imagine could be a problem. Like, I mean, apart from like the presidents who are required by law to save their emails, I'm not sure how many people have
Like built-in email
like
saves.
emails saved from that long
I mean, to
ago.
be fair, I don't think that many people are emailing dear beloved wife sent
Yeah.
from my iPhone.
Yeah. And then he also asks about all those journals look so literate. Do you not read the stupid ones?
Apparently not, because
Yeah,
there are
he
stupid
did say
Civil
he
War
was.
letters.
Yeah, I do remember seeing like some like maybe I think it was like World War One. They had like some like slightly explicit letters that turned up, but
Yeah. Well, honestly, a lot of the letters are kind of a lie.
yeah,
They're not necessarily truthful. Oftentimes oftentimes if it was on the deathbed, they were dictated, not
probably.
written.
And also, I mean, they probably wouldn't want to tell them anything they wouldn't want to hear.
Yeah.
So.
So they're censored and
Yeah.
they're intended to give an idea. And if it's somebody else writing it, they're not
Yeah.
gonna.
I mean, there's still useful sources, like
Yeah,
especially on like what the motivations of individual Confederate soldiers were. Like,
yeah. And also, the spelling was bad.
I imagine it
Like
would
a
have
lot of the
been.
soldiers did not know how to spell.
Okay.
So
And so then he talks about what would be good for future documentaries, and he does seem to agree on the Iraq thing.
yeah.
And he says both Gulf Wars, but
How old is Ken Burns now? Ken like because I've if so in a Gulf War documentary, if we're going off when it starts in like '89
it was like in the 90s. It was not
in
in
the
'89,
'90s,
like
so
91, I
so we
think,
have to be 2040.
like
So he's 70
2041 or
now.
something. Yeah, oh, yeah. I guess he is 70.
He's older than I thought.
I mean, I assume his hair is probably a hairpiece, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
he looks younger for his
Yeah,
age, although his hair does look kind of fake.
yeah.
So what he would have been 50 on the show
No, like
on
he would have
Colbert,
been like 52.
52. So he's not gonna probably not gonna be live for an Iraq
Yeah,
documentary, or he
probably
probably
not.
won't be able to make it even if he is.
Yeah. But I mean, and so Colbert brings back the joke about how like they ruined the sequel to the Gulf War.
Hmm.
The thing that then Ken Burns said that he would maybe call it the Petroleum Wars, just like the Peloponnesian Wars, and and Colbert counters that's putting oil down. Oil was like food. And then Ken Burns says, "You got me over a barrel," which is a real saying. So I guess
Mm.
points on him for coming up with that one.
What does it mean?
It means like kind of what you think it means, like you got me in a bind, basically,
Oh,
kind of
okay.
thing.
So I mean, I feel like it's not a great comparison between Peloponnesian Wars
Yeah,
and
that's not named after.
Petroleum Wars. I mean, Gulf War is more
And
accurate to
also,
that.
like I do feel like even though it was very common to say at the time, like I don't think anybody seriously that scholarship thinks that oil was the only thing they wanted from the wars. I mean, to
Yeah.
be fair, like oil was probably the reason why Iraq invading Kuwait was so bad, but
Yeah. It like so. I assume was the term Petroleum Wars ever in favor?
I doubt it. Like I don't think I've
So it
heard it.
probably will never be
Yeah.
called the Petroleum Wars.
So then he gets back to the Civil War thing. He says since
Mm.
he's from the cradle of the Confederacy in Charleston, I'm sure they call it the cradle of the Confederacy. They'll probably just call it the cradle of the Civil War. And so we
Yeah.
asked him some quick quiz questions, like how many deaths are at Fort Sumter, and he says none. Which,
He actually does know.
yeah, but I mean he doesn't. But then they give him some really hard ones, like who was the only officer who got commissions from the U.S. Army and the Confederate Army.
And that person
Is Alfred Torbert, or full name Alfred Thomas Archimedes Torbert. I think like, apparently they did give him the position in the Confederate Army, but he chose the Union Army instead. He was from Delaware,
okay. So unlike Lee, he was actually offered positions in both.
I guess.
So that's interesting. What was his service like as a Union
I'm
general?
not
Does he
sure.
do anything? Not general. What was he?
Alfred Torbert. I mean, I think he might have actually been a general in the Union, even though he was only
Lieutenant in the.
yeah,
Is that why he chose the Union?
maybe. Yeah, Alfred Torbert was a general.
So what?
2 stars only, but yeah.
Yeah, what army did he serve in?
He was the first. He says he commanded the first New Jersey on Wikipedia.
New Jersey. So what
Yeah,
battles?
it says he was in like Gettysburg, the Rowan.
Gettysburg, Shop, Third
Yeah.
Winchester, and Cedar Creek. I also saw he was a U.S. consul to El Salvador,
Okay. Yeah.
which I guess is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I have for people not like when podcasts just read off Wikipedia without telling, but I mean, we did say that we did, so I feel like
Yeah,
it's fine.
it does. It's okay. What's the deal with people in the Civil War having so many Greek names? Do they think it was?
I mean, they gave out like a lot of like Roman names. I think like the South was worse.
Yeah.
I mean, had like Supreme Court Justice, Lucius Quintus Cincinnatus Lamar.
Like, do they just not think people would not realize it's kind of discordant with the?
I mean, the Roman thing, like the idea was it was like the Republic. Like Cincinnatus was the officer who gave up his.
Yeah, it makes sense, but just kind of sounds funny with the last name.
Yeah.
My personal favorite Civil War name is Orestes Bronson.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He's not like a soldier.
Yeah.
Oh, he is, or not a?
No, oh, he wasn't from the Civil War. He was a transcendentalist, like the one guy.
Oh,
Although he was also a Catholic transcendentalist. Which I
yeah.
imagine probably made a lot of the people in Boston not like him
So
because
he wrote in the
there's.
Civil War.
It seems. I mean, he was alive during the Civil War, but
Yeah, but it's a funny name.
yeah.
And there's a lot of names like that in the Civil War.
And according to Wikipedia, at least, his brother also became a Mormon, so I guess they were like the converts family.
Yeah,
Um,
Transcendentalist Mormons. How about that?
I'm not sure if his
Well,
brother
yeah.
was a transcendentalist. But then he asks him what was the longest last name for a Union general.
Mm.
And Colbert pulls out Schimmelpfennig. Alexander Schimmelpfennig, who is the leader of the 74th Pennsylvania Regiment, originally called like the First German Pennsylvania Regiment.
Yeah.
And he was, and as I suspected when I watched this, he was one of the people who left Germany after the Revolution of 1848.
Oh.
And a lot of those people wound up getting jobs from the military, U.S. military during the Civil War. So
Yeah. So what star general was he? Was Schimmelpfennig?
okay,
According to Wikipedia, he was a
according to
what's
Wikipedia, he was just one
one
star.
star general.
He was buried in writing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what became of the 48er generals?
I mean, it probably did. I'm not sure you could say one thing about all of them,
Are
but
they in high school? What like did they usually stay in the U.S. after the war? Did they return for
I mean,
the?
I mean, they were living in the U.S. before the war. They had fled
Yeah.
after 1848, and they were just, I guess, were looking for jobs in the military until the Civil War
Yeah.
came along. And
I guess Prussians were trusted.
yeah,
What did any of them ever return to Germany?
I feel like probably some of them might have, but I
At least Schimmelpfennig didn't.
don't know. I mean, yeah,
I mean,
Schimmelpfennig died right after the Civil War of malaria. Oh, no,
so
according to this tuberculosis. So
so he wouldn't have.
yeah,
Yeah. So when did like would any of them have returned like during unification? Would they have
maybe,
been?
but I don't know well enough to
Or would
know
Germany
what
not have cared
happened to
about
all of
them?
the. I mean, Germany might have cared about some of them,
Yeah.
but I'm not.
Are there any sports like high school sports teams in Pennsylvania named the 48ers?
No.
I
I
would.
mean, maybe there are, but I don't know.
It feels like a like if like one of the real German speaking areas.
Yeah, maybe in like North Dakota or something.
Yeah.
And so then he does like the whole sepia tone documentary, Ken Burns, an American interview.
Yeah,
I
from
thought that
the
was pretty
Colbert.
good.
Yeah, it was a funny
Said
bit.
on an unseasonably mild autumn evening of a show that was still finding its feet. And then it says that Burns was a maverick choice of death because he wasn't like, I mean, maverick choice of guest. I think I actually made the death typo originally, but
Oh.
and now I said it in speech. How embarrassing was in because like he wasn't like a clown, or I should have written down what they
Yeah, it
said.
wasn't a politician, TV host, or
Yeah,
something else.
and then he said he was going to nail Burns.
In the fourth minute of the interview, but it
Yeah,
has been the fourth minute of the interview, and Burns has
yeah,
not been nailed.
yeah. And this is the first time I think he mentioned his wife being named Lorraine, which I'm curious where they came up with it because I mean that's not his wife's name in real life. I guess just thought it sounded like a Civil War
Does
general.
Colbert's wife Lorraine return?
I
Or
mean, as I said, like I do remember him mentioning that his wife's name is Lorraine multiple times. So
so it comes. Did they start that for this bit?
I
Or
think it might have, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the writers figured it out before.
yeah, they just
And
stopped to
who
put
knows?
it
Maybe
in
it's like the Papa Bear thing where he'd already said it in the
like
Daily Show
pre-show.
thing, but probably
Yeah, historians will debate if
Burns was
Burns
really
was
nailed. And he said this was his funniest interview so far.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
this
probably.
is the funniest
He definitely
interview.
probably went more above and beyond with this one.
Yeah.
And like as I said, like at the end you hear like Colbert and Ken Burns talking about how great it went. So
Yeah, Colbert broke
I
character.
wouldn't call that really breaking character. I mean, they obviously kept it in, and I assume
Yeah.
I wonder if we spread they kind of kept it in just to make it clear to the audience that they were cool with it.
I mean, like, not break character, but you see him not on character on screen.
Yeah.
So, is this the first break or not?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a break because
break?
it was
Well, not break, but first not in character moment on
maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't call it
the show so far.
maybe.
But
And so
also, the interview was funny because Ken Burns thought it was funny too.
Yeah,
which was good.
And at the end, we have the franogram, the freedom anagram of America. It says, make a sentence out of it. And it's I am care.
I think that's the only reasonable
Maybe
sentence.
I am race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, both of those, I guess, have syntax. But
yeah.
And then we get to a formidable opponent.
Yep. I guess they had this thing planned out from the beginning. I remember on the forums they said like they felt like Russ Lieber wasn't a good enough parody of the Fox News people specifically because I mean if they would have a liberal on the show, it would be someone like Alan Colmes on Hannity's show who would barely get to say anything actually challenging.
What is it like to be that person on the show that doesn't get to say anything?
I don't know. So the formidable opponent, he says, the thing about charity is it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
As in, I'm so glad it's not you, it's them.
Just so we're clear about what like the formidable opponent bit is, it's Colbert split screen against Colbert.
Yeah, and they're wearing different color ties,
which is obvious because the screen like burns around it because it's not.
Yeah,
it's.
I guess
like
the effect
2000s.
Wasn't done well enough yet.
Yeah,
live, but And I mean, I guess like the political color coding was established because the blue Colbert is the one that's the liberal one. So,
Yeah.
and the prompt is about Kofi Annan, Secretary General of the United Nations at the time. Although you mixed him up with,
What's his name?
um, I'm gonna
Who'd I mix him up with?
you mix him up with Aliko Dangote, the richest man in
Okay.
Africa, because you remember the story of the one person who kept making sarcastic replies to his Twitter tweets, and
Yeah.
apparently Dangote actually got really mad at it for some reason.
Yep. So I think it's the AN in the last name that got me.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, they are from different countries too. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. I mean, and Kofi Annan, I think, also died a few years back.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed is that, like, I think like for a lot of them they changed the intros, but the intro for a formidable opponent, I'm pretty sure will be pretty much the same. It was already fully formed. I'm guessing since they had the idea so far back, they had plenty of time to like go in and
Hmm.
make the intro.
I mean, it's basically even Stevens, but with just one
Yeah,
Steven.
I know. Like our mom had speculated that that's the reason he came up with it was to
Yeah.
continue that on without Steve Carell.
It's a funny bit.
Yeah,
There's a lot of good jokes in
yeah.
the.
And so Blue Colbert said they should step up to the plate, but then the Red Colbert says that the charities wasted on cookie bouquets.
Mm,
I think this is actually the Blue Colbert because he's making a bad argument. Says he gets a warm feeling from the tax deduction and gets a
yeah.
titles like head honchos. And then Red Colbert says that sounds like gay porn.
I think the joke with like the tax cut is it's still Colbert.
Yeah,
It's just he's trying to justify the position to himself.
yeah,
It's funny. I think we should start referring to them as Colbert Red and Colbert Blue because that
yeah,
sounds more electric, you know?
yeah. I was thinking of like this when Superman split into the Superman Red and Superman
Yeah,
Blue.
in the 90s. That was for the whole 90s too,
No,
right?
not for the whole
For a
'90s.
lot of it.
I'm not
So,
sure. And so they just start laughing back and forth. And I know you're wondering what this would have looked like in the audience because it's literally just flipping him over. And
yeah. Do they have like a TV screen up that
I'm
they're
sure. I mean,
showing
they have TV screens. I'm sure for the images. So imagine it just shows you the.
image?
Yeah, maybe there's also like something in the background that changes colors from blue to red to tell you who's speaking.
Yeah. It's probably weird for the audience.
I remember in a later episode he passes something to himself, and he could, I guess, like he just like put it forward and then brought it back.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's fun.
And then he makes jokes about you're not your brother's keeper. I mean, I don't know, am I not my brother's keeper? Says, but your brother's strapped for cash, so he can't keep you. So then it's not fair.
So
So
you
you should keep
keep
yourself.
yourself.
That's why you put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And then he says, like, the reason why you should treat yourself is because even though you might think you're being better by saving on buying a crappy Korean car instead of a Mercedes, if that car goes out of control, it'll kill all the orphans you paid
You.
for with your crappy car.
Yep.
And then he says, but can't I just tell them to get out of the way? He says, they're deaf orphans.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. And it
Colbert,
said,
Colbert Red says they're deaf
yeah,
orphans.
of course. And it said, and the Colbert Red also says it could be a boat too.
Yeah.
Charity begins at your home or your summer home.
Yeah. So basically, Colbert Red wins the
Yeah.
argument.
I mean, he has to win the argument,
Yeah.
even no matter how supposedly formidable his opponent is.
The true Colbert wins.
Yeah,
So interviews is I think this is the best episode yet.
yeah.
I think all the segments except for the fire escape one were, I think, top tier.
I mean, even the word, even though he didn't have as much to.
The word.
Yeah.
I think the word's pretty much all.
I guess this is something about this that even though this is probably one of the less research heavy ones, I'm pretty sure this might be our longest episode. So
Yeah, maybe it's because it's funnier.
Yeah.
Some more to talk about.
And even though they said we'll be right back at the end, there was not like a segment at the end. I wonder if they're going to stop doing those. So
Yeah, that was weird. I guess it's just probably a different show, or
Yeah.
Colbert appeared in credits in some form,
yeah,
or is just doing it for Comedy Central's sake.
maybe because they might, for all they know, that like the show, the network have a kind of funny idea that like
Yeah.
people would need to be.
So, but like,
Never mind.
who owns the Colbert Report in universe?
I don't think they have a universe that's that specific.
But like, is his actual like in universe? Is his serious news show being run on Comedy Central, or is it
I'm not sure.
CBS?
Okay.
Yeah, can we
Signing
wrap it up?
off.
Signing off.